put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, Tobago, and welcome this morning to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. This is a beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning, and we're really happy to be in your company. Viewers, this is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. I am Rhea Richardson George, and like we said, it's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Lower Scarborough, downtown. We're coming to you live from the third floor, Portmore, Lower Scarborough, and lots of great and exciting things happening today on our morning show. Viewers, before we head on over into what's happening today, we want to head on over into news in 90 seconds with Chanel.
Thank you so much, Rhea. And here is your news in 90 seconds for Thursday, the 4th of May, 2023. A 68-year-old Edward Eastman became Tobago's fifth murder victim for 2023. The resident of Old Ground Golden Lane was shot dead at his home on Wednesday morning. According to his wife, gunmen drove up to his home and shot at him while he was outside. Eastman ran inside the house, but he quickly succumbed to his injuries. Eastman's murder came just a week after Donnell Thomas, who was murdered at his home in Signan Hill. That murder remains unsolved, despite ACP Collis Hazel's firm call for the perpetrators to surrender themselves. So far, all of Tobago's 5 murders for the year were committed using firearms. Additionally, political leader of the Unity of the People, Nkosi Phillips, called on the Chief Secretary Farley Chavez Augustine and the Minority Leader Kelvon Morris to put their political differences aside and develop a crime plan for Tobago. Following Tobago's 5th murder, Phillips pleaded with the Executive Council of the THA and the Minority Council to act in the best interest of Tobagonians. Phillips also criticized the recent heated exchange between Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, where Rowley called for an early election and Augustine instructed Rowley to mind his own business. Phillips reminded the leaders that young people were looking on. And finally, Dean Passard, president of the Online Gaming Agents Association of Trinidad and Tobago, has urged all lottery agents not to participate in the National Lottery Control Board's new court payment scheme. Launched on Monday, an email addressed to the lotto booth operators instructed the judiciary cannot enforce risks that are only $1 or 50 cents per transaction. The email indicated that the latest court pay fee was imposed without consultation by the association and its agent without proper notification on how the system works by the NLCB. On Monday, the judiciary announced court pay can be facilitated at lotto booths across the country. However, Passard complained that they were never consulted about this. And that was your news in 90 seconds. Back to you, Rhea.
Thank you so much there, Chanel. Thank you so much there for the news in 90 seconds. Well, viewers, before we chat about what's coming up on the program, we want to head on over into our birthday segment for today. It's a pretty short birthday segment, but nonetheless, we've got a birthday today. All right, and celebrating a birthday today, we've got Bernadette Fraser. Bernadette Fraser celebrating her birthday today. So happy birthday going out to you this morning, Bernadette Fraser. And I know this lovely lady. We went to school together. She was a year ahead of me, but she looks fantastic. Yes, so happy birthday going out to you. You definitely are the queen for the day. And we trust that you do have a great one and that you do enjoy this morning. All right, so we're going to head on over into Tobago in Focus before we get onto our rundown. Tobago in Focus.
World Consumer Rights Day theme for 2023 is Empowering Consumers Through Clean Energy Transition. The theme aims to focus on the role of consumers to push for a faster, clean energy transition. Larger countries have already begun doing so and are currently asking that smaller countries and islands do away with carbon energy.
The more developed countries can afford to do that because they would have established themselves, established the economy, have the standard of living so high based on the carbon energy that they would have used for production for years. Now, the smaller countries like ourselves who are in third world status, we are now trying to establish ourselves, and our access is carbon energy. So what do?
Trinidad and Tobago's current access is carbon energy. However, consumers can practice conservation by other means.
When you're not using a light, you turn it off.
Right.
Instead of driving to go certain places, you can walk or you can cycle. So those are what we are really pushing at Consumer Affairs, because for us to tell consumers to cut down on carbon energy, tell the country to cut down on carbon energy, we might be shooting ourselves in the foot.
The Consumer Affairs Division also deals with consumers' rights and responsibilities, the importance of knowing and exercising your right.
Consumers, you know your rights. We have been doing pretty good in Tobago. I must say between the last 5 to 10 years, consumers are quite aware of their rights, like your right to redress, your right to choice, your right to choose. Those are good. Your right to consumer education. All those are rights that we should have as consumers. We should be practicing. But what consumers are not doing properly is to adhere to your responsibilities.
If consumers do not practice their responsibilities, certain rights can become defunct. Consumers have a right to choose, but many do not understand that they have a responsibility to shop around and get information regarding products before purchasing.
Welcome back this morning, viewers. It is the Tobago Updates Morning Show, and joining us this morning is the handsome, young, missing in action for a few days, Julian Skeets.
Thank you very much, dear Rhea, for that that very obvious indication. Good morning, viewers, listeners, to each and every one of you connecting up with us here on the Tobago Updates Morning Show. Rhea, it's been an interesting last few days.
Yes.
Yes, in the lineup, it goes ever so often.
Yes.
In the mix of that, really some time to be able to extend those condolences, families and so on. One of my very good friends, mom would have passed recently. Funeral, very smooth flow, I would say, in the fashion of the woman herself and the legacy of in Benoit, mom of Anika and Avenel.
Yes.
Funeral flowed, and the entire process, just as she would usually be very, very organized indeed. So as I say to persons, this after portion is usually that point that takes the effort, and I really want to continue to send out those prayers and love to both Anika, Avenel, and their families in terms of the going through this different stage in life.
Definitely, and Julian, I wish we did not know it. I wish we did not understand it from the perspective of having walked the road before, but it is a part of life, and we continue to pray God's peace and His strength to the family even at this time.
Certainly.
So what have you been up to? That's what Tobago wants to know. The viewers have been asking, is Julian okay? Is everything all right? Rhea, one viewer messaged me privately to ask, tell me the truth. Is Julian okay? Yes.
All is well. Over the weekend, I met someone on the airport, and there she was saying to me, in the mix, everything all right? Everything good? I say, yes, it's all good. It's all fine. But we're happy to be here this morning. And in the true spirit, as someone said to me, if you don't say this, you're gonna end up in trouble. May the 4th be with you. It's that kind of day in the mix. The 4th of May. We are in that celebratory month.
Yes.
And I would say in some ways as well, the celebrations have kicked off. I am no stranger to giving God thanks for His many blessings.
That's right.
And I am one of those that I'm not certain I'm going to have the privilege of getting to years later to be able to celebrate and enjoy. So let me celebrate and enjoy it along the way. Every year that I am granted life, especially very different perspective coming after the COVID-19 pandemic indeed.
That's right.
But before we go on any further, because there's a lot happening in Trinidad and Tobago in the mix, But before we head on in there, let's get a little insight into who do we have on the rundown this morning.
All right. So, Julian, we start things off this morning with Assemblyman Ian Pollard, Secretary for the Division of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development. And the focus this morning is on the social housing projects, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about that.
All right, we look forward to those discussions. We'll also be chatting with Marisha Edwards Thomas, Senior Information Systems Support Specialist at DIRTEC, the Division of Education, Research and Technology. We look forward to those discussions.
And then we wrap things up this morning chatting with Dr. Paul Crooks, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Veterinary Association. And Dr. Crooks is going to be chatting with us on the Tobago Animal Hospital on antimicrobial resistance. He'll tell us more about that and the link between dogs or animals and humans.
Yes, very, very interesting. Ria, what's your thought? What's your thoughts with the happenings on the political front, current affairs?
Julian, a lot has been happening. And of course, we are waiting. A lot of persons are waiting to see how things are going to unfold. In my opinion, a lot of politicians, too many politicians, are not remembering the hat and the office that they hold. And I don't want to say speaking out of turn, but not fully aware of what they should say based on the office that they hold, the hats that they wear, just being very cautious of what should be said and when.
Very interesting times ahead. I want to also say kudos and shout outs to the youth hosts. Over the last 2 Wednesdays, they would have hosted Senator Lawrence Hislop, and also yesterday hosting the Honorable Chief Secretary, Fabi Chavez Augustin. So kudos going out there to our Youth Wednesday host in terms of continuing to bring the information here to you via the Tobago Updates morning show. Ria, we don't ever hesitate at all to certainly encourage and to push our young persons.
That's right.
And certainly kudos to them. What one would describe as big interviews in the mix and in the lineup over the last 2 Wednesdays, treating with very pertinent and current issues here within our Tobago space.
Most definitely. Julian, looking at the time now, we've got to head on over.
Yes, at this point, viewers, we want to thank you so much for the continued love and support. Each and every one of you connecting with us, those of you joining us via TV, those listening in on the radio, and those of you joining us online. We want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Sign up, save, and win every day with Digicel Plus. You could win a tablet or a TV every single day. Just sign up for Digicel Plus and like yourself. Visit digiceltt.com or a Digicel store to sign up now. Promotion ends May 19th and is approved by the NLCB.
Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
The Across the Floor Dance Company presents Emotions, Movement of the Heart dance production on Saturday, May 27th at the Shore Park Complex. Come see dances of all genres. Seating at 6:30 p.m. Show starts promptly at 7 p.m. Tickets are only $100. Children 10 and under pay $50 at the door. Tickets are available at Shore Park Complex box office, or please call 391-2816 for more information. This is an event for the entire family.
Yes, be careful.
Honey, I feel like going and start
to cook, yes, because these children must be hungry now, right? Okay. Oh, shucks. Oh. These plugs, oh my gosh.
Hey, Lisa, hey, come from there, come from there.
What's going on in here?
Oh God, I should have buy exhibition, boy. What would you do if this happened to you? Dial 990 in case of fire emergencies and always have a serviceable fire extinguisher ready and available at all times.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning.
Good morning, viewers. It is 7:12 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Yes, this is our paradise indeed. Viewers, in this segment, we are chatting HOME, home. For many, a critical asset. For many, just that space where I'm able to rock back and be myself. But we're speaking about it this morning in the context of the home ownership made equal, as we speak with the Division of Settlements. And this morning on set with us is Assemblyman Ian Platt, Secretary for the Division of Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development. And we also have on with us Jimmy Sylvester, and Jimmy is the Social Intervention Officer. So you know when Secretary come here loaded plus, it's big things he's going to do here this morning. Good morning and welcome to y'all.
Good morning, Julian. Good morning to your viewing public. Good morning to the people of Mason, Northern Moira, my electoral district, and the wider world.
All right, so we're diving straight on into it, Secretary, in terms of setting the tone. Some weeks back, we would have had the opportunity to speak in relation to what started off as that investigative type tour and initiative heading on out to Jamaica, seeing what's happening on the outside with the intent to make a difference in the Tobago space. In some instances, you and your division and your colleagues would have been highly criticized, saying it's just another trip. Here it is, we are seeing and getting some details in relation to the launch of this initiative, and I want you to make the connection with what we now see as the Home Ownership Made Equal initiative as we speak on the broader sense before we delve into the details.
Well, Julian, before I go for that, I must say good morning to my employees in Jamaica, because I do have a staff in Jamaica. We are so closely knitted. But Jamaican people have showed us the way. I mean, our trip, as you said, the minority leader said we were on a picnic trip. But if this was a picnic, I love the fruits that would bear from our picnic. And I would want to let him know that a picnic table will be in his constituency very soon. So he could bring the blankets. But
go ahead.
But the trip really bore fruit. I mean, we had our own housing initiative here, and we saw it fit to see what Jamaica is doing, because they are data driven. I mean, anything they do, they have the data for it. I mean, they are out there, they have the policies in place. So we think that was a fitting place to go and see, observe on our 2 trips, and we're able to amend or tweak our policy and to implement this new housing initiative, which I said, because the Jamaica, when they started, they told us their first house came in like 65 to 90 days. We were able to deliver a house in 21 days.
And tell us a little bit more about this. We saw this story that would have been presented, making waves across the media in terms of reaching out to that mother and son in response as what some would describe as the pilot. And then, of course, you know, your very firm commitment of promises, more to come.
Yes.
All right? Tell us about that initiative specifically.
Well, Ms. Bruce came to my office on the 5th of April 2022, and after hearing her plight, I told her in no uncertain term that it stops here because she had been trying to get a home since 2016. She was afforded a parcel of land in Mason that I think was precipitous, and for someone who was visually impaired, I think it was insensitive to offer a parcel of land. Even the excavator operator who was supposed to clear the land told her that it's impossible to put a house there. So when she came, I told her we're gonna make sure provide a home for her. And that we did. She didn't know she was going to get that home until that morning when she heard it, one of the announcers saying that, okay, we're going to hand over this house. So I kept it a secret. I spoke to our son, Giovanni, in the United States and told him what we were going to do. So he was on the live. But that's the commitment we have for not only Ms. Bruce, but all Tobagonians. And you're going to see many more to come, starting from today.
So, Jimmy, I want you to tell us here, from where you sit, and you know, we've lived through the times where people thought social intervention and social work was only something that you would see under social services.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, from where you sit, the importance of an initiative like this and the connection in terms of as a social officer based on your training and your background.
Good morning, Tobago again. Now, what we need to understand is basic needs still remains food, shelter, and clothing. And what we fail to realize is a home provides dignity. It provides person to have that sense of security and that sense of self-worth. And the social workers or the social intervention officers at settlements would provide that assessment of where the need is. Many persons want something, but they don't need it. And that's a difference. There's a difference between a want and a need. A need is something that you just cannot live without. And through this initiative, we are able to grant person their needs and help them to live a more dignified life in the Tobago space. Because we all know many times person brand the division and say you're giving homes to people who want it and to persons who don't need it. And this initiative would really allow us to meet the persons at the point of their need. So when we did this initiative, and if you heard Miss Bruce's response, she said, the blind finally has a voice. And that is something that stood out to us, meaning that we are making impact where it is needed.
Now, it's clear that some changes have been made to the policy where it is there would have been distributions in the past and you put down your name on a list. I want you to make the comparison between those persons who may have put down their names on a list for a number of years and what is now this new initiative being led off in terms of the home program.
The social housing is, we're going to go out and look at the persons who are really in need, as Ms. Sylvester said. Those homes that are in dilapidated states, the indigent. But in the housing policy that would be changing the division after approval from the Executive Council, is that we have some persons who call my phone, they meet me, you know, you go out and someone is in your ears telling you, that they've applied 20 years now. So the policy will be changed as instructed by the Chief Secretary and Executive Council, that persons who have been enlisted for 20 years, they're going to have a special category for those persons only. Persons with 10 years, they're going to have a special category from that. So it's a fair, open, transparent process. So we don't want everybody because last time when the draw was made for Riseland, some persons applied the same week and their name were called in the draw. And some persons were upset saying that they have applied 20 years. So we're going to have a special category for those persons so that a pool would be there for a certain percentage for them.
So just so that I'm clear, that program is separate from the Home Ownership Made Equal program?
Yes.
Okay, so one caters, so as you're mentioning, those draws will now cater to the different groupings based on how long you've been there. So you're sure to know if I in the 20-year batch, at least some of the houses is going to go to that group. And if I in the 10-year batch, some going to go there. And I don't have to get vexed with only those who lucky from the first year batch. Because why we just want to be happy for luck when we receive it.
Yes.
All right. But as we delve in a little further, I want you to give some insight into the target groups associated. Because in the past, yes, there was a broad category associated with applying for housing, but then the challenges seem to have occurred when you get to the housing development and you say, hey, Jimmy and Ian get one boy.
So the target group would be, for the social housing program, would be the differently abled, the persons, single mothers, those that are the low income of life. So you have some CPAP and some URP workers. You also have the persons who fall prey to the disaster and flood and fires. You know, sometimes that they just really, this happened and you really don't have a response. You also have the elderly, because we know some persons live their life, they worked all their lives, and they cannot afford a home, and at pension $3,000 per month, and you know what rent is like in Tobago, you just cannot afford to, right? With that being said, I wanted to be clear that the program is not free per se, but it would also be done via an assessment. So persons who can pay would pay for not necessarily a high mortgage, but they would provide some kind of finance, because we know money value is attached to where your cash is.
Secretary, following off of Jimmy's point there, we know it is that the THE on its own is not able to afford the delivery. Tell us about the stakeholders, you know, and the kind of partnership efforts to be able to make this happen and to deliver these homes.
Well, to tell you, Julian, is that we have had conversation with the credit unions sometime last year, starting to have a discussion about this initiative, even before we went to Jamaica. And what is mind-boggling or heart-rending is that this institution have not bought into the process. So we know that we have to foot it on our own. Eventually, I know that they have seen the success in it, that they will probably come on board. But we have to try to produce these houses that they are low-cost housing. And it's for those people who are most in need. So we are hoping that they or the banking industry get involved. But if not, as Ms. Sylvester said, we're going to go after this target group and then try to provide homes for these persons.
Tell us about the administration of this social program in terms of its delivery, reaching persons, income brackets, and these things that persons may wonder about as part of the qualifying factors, if indeed I fall into one of the relevant target areas.
Well, the income bracket, first thing, the ceiling is 7,500, right? And so we'll be catering really for those who are at the lower end of the ceiling, right? And then you have persons who unemployed, because the differently abled would be getting a disability grant, and the elderly will be getting pension and that kind of thing. The process is you have to go through your area representatives, and the reason for that is that we don't want that persons come to the division and say, you know, I need a house because of the situation that they have, right? But your area representatives should know what is happening in their constituencies, and because of that, they would be able to give that sense of, yes, this person is really living in this situation and they really need the home. Added to that, we also have the part of where the community leader or community member would have to give recommendation as well to state that this case is really something that is warranted, because at the end of the day, we said home is security. So you can't just come in and say, well, you want a home and this is what it is, or you're living in the hospital and you want a house. Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting indeed. Secretary, I want you to tie in a little bit more. Let's speak to the units itself. What's the hope to make available to persons in terms of, it's going to be 1-bedroom units, where it is I still have to be looking for something down the road. I might have the opportunity in better times to expand. Tell us a little bit about these units, because you know some people believe if it coming like this, why that had nothing too good to fight up with.
Yeah.
No. We're doing 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, but we go out and do the assessment, and then we have the dimensions. We're actually looking for 2 quotes from 2 other service providers, so that we can actually get this program going, because as you know, we were mandated by the Chief Secretary to complete at least 20 before the ending of June, because these models are made out of light gauge steel, so it's aluminum frame and gypsum walls, and I mean, we could have it done within the time. So we are really, really trying to deliver to the people who are most in need, Julian. That is the key.
And tell us, will this be in set areas as has happened previously,
no,
or you work with? Tell us a little bit about
as you see, we are going out in the field today. We're going to go through the length of Britain and Tobago, because we have started Saturday. We were out with a team assessing some homes, and we are hoping to go through from Plymouth to Charlottesville today, come around to Castara, so we could have those 20 homes assessed and get the ball rolling as soon as possible.
What has your experience been being on the ground? Because from what I see and from what I know in relation to you, you don't seem to be there just for the distribution.
No.
You there every step of the way, even though it means more demands on you, because people are happy to see what it is. They say, let me ask him, or what going on with the application. Tell us how that experience has been for you in terms of as part of this initiative and the rollout.
I think as secretary, I have to be hands-on with what is going on the ground. I'm not the kind of person who like to stay in the office and get report comes to me. I like to be especially helping those who are in most in need, because you know we'd have a campaign on the fact of giving Tobagonians a hand up, not a handout. So that improving the lives of Tobagonians. So I want the first-hand knowledge so I could prioritize this person is in need, because what we are seeing out there, Julian, I mean, a report could not paint a picture of what the conditions some persons out there living in. So we have to be out there to see, get an assessment and know, prioritize, because we have a person before I left for Jamaica, they said that in the country area, who was living in a toilet. And this day is 2023. And you know what was really sad about that distribution on last Friday? The Milford Court development is 47 years old this year, 1976. And I, as secretary and leader of the division, commandeered a team to go through the development, and we found 10 parcels of land inside there yet to be distributed. Today, 47 years later. And that goes for all the developments in Tobago. There's still 36 plots in Castara. There's still 19 in Bleming. There's plots of lands all over to be given out, but shockingly, there are units in Adventure to be given out. But one thing Tobagonian could be sure of, every parcel of land, every unit will be given out by the secretary and my assistant secretary, everyone.
All right, and I'm sure that's good news to hear for persons looking on and saying, well, look how long I'm asking about something down in that area. All right, as we prepare to wrap this morning's interview, Jimmy, any key areas you would want to highlight before we close?
I would really like to thank the Jamaicans, the Ministry of Housing, that they were open to us. They really assisted us and showed us the model. And any assistance that we want or ask stuff, they were willing to share even when we got back, you know, and we really want to thank them. We really want to thank the managing director at NHT, which is Mr. Miller, and the social development team led by Miss Wendy Jo Williams. We really want to thank them because they have been with us every step of the way, and we really, really want to thank them for their assistance. We don't know everything, and knowledge sharing is important. Networking is important, and we thank them so much for their assistance in us being able to deliver this. We also really thankful to the chief because he gave the secretary a mandate on April 4th last year, 2022, and it's one of the points in the mandate was to deliver low-cost housing, and really and truly, Julian, we thought we were delivering low-cost housing because that's been what we were there for. And now that we are really doing it, we realize that there's a sect in society that really needs this aspect. And Tobagonians, we are asking you, when we come to your communities or when we come to your area and you realize that someone is building, please lend a hand. Because at the end of the day, today, you may have a roof over your head, but you don't know what tomorrow holds. Welfare doesn't have a face. So let's help each other build.
All right. And Secretary, in closing, just give us a little insight and a sneak peek into that time ahead. I know so far you spoke up to June with your timeline and commitment, but those projections and the deliveries that you hope to make broadly in your division within this term.
Yes, we do. And beside the social housing, we are hoping to give out the contract for the first housing development at Chevron Road, which will be 588 units thus far. We're also looking at Adventure in Plymouth. We're looking at 150 units. And we were mandated that Adelphi and Mason will be lands only. So we're going to put in the infrastructure. So, and also in Colon, we're going to do that. But going back to the housing, our housing units, our 3-bedroom will be 2-bathroom. Because COVID has taught us if we have to isolate at home, we cannot have 1 bathroom in the home. And the Jamaican government, they were receptive to this idea because they weren't thinking along this line. So the knowledge sharing really works out. So we are looking to build out these 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. As I said, we're going to go out today, assess these persons, and start as quickly as possible. But I'm calling and pleading to the persons, especially my nurses, police officers, fire officers, please be pre-qualified, because as very soon as these units constructed, we're going to give them out in phases. So if the first set of batches in Chauvin is ready by January, we'll be handing them out. We're not holding anything for election. We are handing out as we construct. And we have to start to have conversations with our public, because it's the first time on the landscape that we'll be going to 6-story buildings. So that kind of living, you have to have conversation. They have persons understand the type of living. So I hope that everyone gets on board and do the right thing, get pre-qualified. Once you're pre-qualified and you're on the system, there's a possibility of you getting on the draw.
All right, and I always have to make a plug for my young persons.
Yes.
So in the same way you have the categories with the 30 year and 20 year and 10 year.
Yes.
There needs to be a category for young servers.
There's a category for young professionals. Good. So there's a category for everyone. So when we make the changes, it will be ratified by the Executive Council and approved, and we're gonna make it known to the public. But before I go, Julian, I would like to give you one of our keychains, our home keychain.
Yes. Let me make sure the viewers can see it very quickly in the mix. They're all seeing it. I've got to take it out of the packet before they start shouting at me. Yes, so you're getting an opportunity to see it here in the mix this morning.
And it was designed by a Tobago young person, Mr. Christopher Alfred.
Very
so
nice.
we thank him for that. And we also want persons to know, as you're on that point of young professionals and stuff, in once the policy has been approved by Executive Council, the subventions and the subsidies for home ownership would no longer be blanket. So you would not have a person that is senior paying the same amount, getting the same subsidy as a person that is young, because a young person will be able to qualify for a better mortgage compared to somebody that is senior. So it is something that would be in the making as well.
Correct, and as my grandmother would say, it's only my pension I work in with.
But have opportunities. Before I go, I would like to thank EJ Engineering, who constructed that home free of cost. They donated that, and I must say, we thank them from the bottom of our heart. So we're looking forward to go ahead and start constructing these homes as soon as possible, so we could meet our mandate of 20 houses by the end of June, because they have perfected the skill, and they said they told me that they could probably do one under 21 days.
Excellent, and certainly that's what we're looking to hear here in Tobago. Thank you very much, Assemblyman Ian Pollard, joining us here on set, Secretary with responsibility for the Division of Settlement, Public Utilities and Rural Development, and Social Intervention Officer Jimmy Sylvester. So folks, feel free to connect with them. The main office is located in Crown Point, but I want to go as far to say anywhere you see them in Tobago, stop them, flag them down, so you could interact and get the required information that you need as we speak to. And I know hearing this interview this morning, many have a keen interest, because we know that the list and the waiting has happened so much, for the simple reason that the demand always outweighs what is available. But certainly where the opportunity exists and there are plots available, I know that persons would be looking forward to hearing of the distribution. So we're holding Secretary to that commitment, and we will be doing our follow-up to ensure that really and truly those available plots are distributed, so we know as far and wide as possible persons continue to benefit. Thank you so much for joining us here on set this morning at the Tobago Updates morning show. And up next we have Marisha Edwards Thomas, all right, representing DIRTEC as we speak, ICT in our schools, Division of Education, Research and Technology. Those of you connecting with us online, and those of you listening in on the radio, and to each and every one of you, even on the television, we want to remind all of you, particularly those of you online, that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Jesus Rally Tobago is back. Rejoice, O land. On Saturday, May 6th, 10 a.m., 2 massive trucks with high praise, prayer, and declaration will lead motorcades across Tobago. One truck leaves Roxborough and heads to Scotland.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up and look, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. better look up below, cause this is your show.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash in transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Johnny,
Call fire.
What's the number? Oh, God.
An emergency, good afternoon. You said the building is on fire. Are there any persons trapped? 4 persons. What is the address of the call, ma'am? Number 4, Candy Drive, Pier Road. Can I have your name, please? Miss Bihari? Thank you, Miss Bihari. I'll be dispatching an appliance. Central Control from Fire Control.
Go ahead, Fire Control. Central Control is receiving over.
Central Control, have a plants and crew. Respond to our residential fire. Same is at number 4, Candy Drive, Pier Road, Chabonas. 4 persons are trapped, 2 adults, 2 children. They were unable to make contact with fire service, so she called on their behalf.
Transmission received loud and clear. Operator at Central Control, 3463. Firefighter Wiley, Central Controller.
Create an evacuation plan for you and your family and practice your escape. Always ensure you have more than one way to safely exit your home. Your lives may depend on it.
The Across the Floor Dance Company presents Emotions, Movement of the Heart dance production on Saturday, May 27th at the Shore Park Complex. Come see dances of all genres. Seating at 6:30 p.m. Show starts promptly at 7 p.m. Tickets are only $100. Children 10 and under pay $50 at the door. Tickets are available at Shore Park Complex box office or please call 391-2816 for more information. This is an event for the entire family.
October will never be better with Tobago Carnival fever. Book your passage and come on over.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back. It is 7:38 a.m. here on the Tobago Updates morning show. And we have the opportunity this morning in this segment. We're speaking ICT in schools. We're speaking information technology. Where are we heading? And this morning we have the opportunity to speak with Marisha Edwards-Thomas, Senior Information Systems Specialist, Support Specialist at the Division of Education, Research and Technology. Good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
All right, so as we get the conversation started this morning, let's start off first. In the very older days and years ago, you would just have an IT section within the division. Let's speak very broadly in the first instance about that area of responsibility within the Division of Education, Research and Technology.
All right, so let me say, when I would have joined the Division of Education, back then, Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, the ICT section would have comprised of just one officer. I became the second officer on the team here in Tobago. Our main responsibility would have been, continue to be to support the ICT implementation in the division and in particular in the schools. Right, so our responsibilities, therefore, encompass the implementation of networking infrastructure, implementation and maintenance of the telecommunication infrastructure. That includes the telephone systems and the internet services. Of course, there's also the deployment and upkeep of equipment throughout the division and the schools, so printers, computers, copiers, you name it.
All right. So as we speak, and a fast track to what we have just been through, the immediate demands placed on ICT. And just for the benefit of our viewers, what does ICT stand for?
All right, so ICT is information and communication technology. So it speaks to the interconnection of the devices, it speaks to the management and manipulation of the data in the environment. So it's information and the communication technology.
All right, so I want you to fast track to the pandemic period, and now as we're heading on out of this pandemic period, the importance and the role, particularly with regards to ICT in our schools under the responsibility of the Division of Education.
All right, so the pandemic, while you're always preparing for technology, we can say that the pandemic would have hit us as most other persons by surprise, so that you were not fully prepared for what we had to face. However, the division was able to quickly respond. The THA was able to secure over 3,000 devices that would have been deployed to students to allow them to be able to get online for their classes. Not only was the devices provided by the THA, there were a lot of private sector organizations that would have also supported the plea and would have contributed to several of our schools providing devices for students who were in need so that they would have been able to function during this period. In addition to that, the division was also, would have, at that point, just at the start of the pandemic, we would have launched the division's website, which you can visit at https://tha.gov.tt. On the website, we were able to share a lot of resources. The learning management system was deployed. The division was able to engage the teachers to produce lessons, recorded lessons that were aired on the website and also on the media, so that students would have had the opportunity for some asynchronous learning during that period also.
How do you see these being continued in terms of continued utilization within our education system now that schools have returned to in-person?
All right, so
and I'm asking the question quite simply because in several circles I've made the point. If we just return to what we knew 2019 before COVID, then we're wasting time if COVID has taught us nothing else in terms of how to better utilize our technology. So now that students are back in school face-to-face, how are those opportunities still being utilized in some way, form, or fashion to keep persons abreast? So should something happen again, God forbid, in some way, form, or fashion, the transition should not be that challenging in our system.
All right, so you have me, I'm smiling because you have me starting to think about being an educator now, and right? So bear in mind that I'm not an educator, right? But based upon conversations that we have been having in the division now, the mandate has been that we cannot go back to where we were, right? We cannot go back to chalk and talk. So for one, we would have invested heavily in the acquisition of devices, and these devices must be used. In addition to that, we are living in the digital age, and the children now, the technology is what they know, and it is where they would also learn best, right? So teachers, I know some teachers are definitely using the technology that is available to them. They are still using their online class, their digital classrooms. They are still using those technologies to both share information and interact with their students, and this is actually being encouraged even more. So just 2 weeks ago, we would have just completed a training session where over 100 and 160 or just about 160 teachers would have been trained in the use of the digital platforms for teaching and learning. This would have come on the heels of the implementation of 9 smart classrooms, 1 in each secondary school, right? So in these smart classrooms, the schools were all provided with a smart interactive board, along with a document camera, web camera, PTZ camera, and all of this to aid in the delivery of education via the technology.
All right. As we prepare to wrap this morning, I'd like you to share, where do you see things heading, or what's your hopes and aspirations in terms of with ICT in our schools, and even going beyond that, probably looking at the context of your division at the Tobago House of Assembly?
Okay, so definitely in the education sector, the encouragement is for the teachers to embrace the technology and use it, have the students interact where they are comfortable. So as I would have indicated, 160 teachers were trained. However, smart classrooms were implemented only in the secondary schools, right? So the secondary schools would have received the devices, and 90 teachers from secondary schools were trained. However, there were teachers from ECC schools and the primary schools that also received training. The training that they would have received was specific to using the online applications to engage the students, right? Teachers were encouraged to use the application to be able to formulate the lessons through quizzes and games and other interactive medias where the children would be comfortable while actually learning. Right? So this is the encouragement for the teachers. Also, we know that the thrust as it relates to examinations is towards e-testing, and that is something that is also being embraced here in the Tobago Circle. So while there has not been a full implementation coming from CXC and from CXC as yet with the e-testing, it is being done in some phases. However, in our schools here in Tobago, the schools from the management levels are being encouraged to utilize e-testing so that the students are comfortable, so that by the time they get to these high-stake exams, they're already comfortable with the use of that e-testing, so that they would be able to excel in their examinations.
Right, excellent. Thank you so much there, Marisha Edwards-Thomas, Senior Information Systems Support Specialist at the Division of Education, Research and Technology, speaking to us here very broadly about some of the areas that I'm sure it probably caught you by surprise that some of these things are happening in schools, and as well looking at those projections as we continue within our entire education system. Thank you so much for joining us here on set this morning at the Tobago Updates Morning Show. Yes, each and every one of you connecting with us online. I'm seeing a comment here. Karen, and I suspect Karen is out of Tobago at this point. It's wonderful to see progress in our beautiful island. Everyone deserves a good standard of living. Certainly, we welcome those comments in terms of our viewers online. And to recognize, I see Ophelia in the mix, Godfrey Kinder joining us, Carl, Brenda, Antonio, morning and shout outs as well, QQ Melville, Liesel James, to each and every one of you connecting with us here on the live. I see Auntie Dora in the mix, Auntie Dornette Dempster also connecting with us. We want to thank you so much. Those of you joining us via TV, sitting comfortably looking on because you have done your contribution in this lifetime, and now you're enjoying life from a different perspective, as my grandmother would say. Those of you listening in the hustle and bustle, you're on your way, and those of you connecting with us on the live, this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Everybody only worrying. Never ever worry. Don't mind how things looking hard. I tell them never ever worry. If your life can't get damaged bad. I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider, Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry, don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry, if your house get flooded out real bad. I tell them never ever worry, what I'm saying is true. So just consider, Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry, if sickness catch you off guard. I tell them never ever worry, if times fall on you real hard. I tell them never ever worry, what I'm saying is true. So just consider, Tatil will always be here for you.
Never worry about a thing. Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
Sign up, save, and win every day with Digicel Plus. You could win a tablet or a TV every single day. Just sign up for Digicel Plus and like yourself. Visit digiceltt.com or a Digicel store to sign up now. Promotion ends May 19th and is approved by the NLCB.
Jesus Rally Tobago is back. Rejoice, O land. On Saturday, May 6th, 10 a.m. Two massive trucks with high praise, prayer, and declaration will lead motorcades across Tobago. One truck leaves Roxborough and heads to Scotland.
Tapicom. Welcome to the future. The only card you will need in a new world. Digital business cards. Safe, hassle-free. The future is here. Tapicom. New generation digital transfer. Digital time clock cards. Digital attendance cards. Air tags. Customized designs. Digital clothing tags. Digital pet tags. Tapicom. The future is here. Contact us today.
If you see or know about a crime, report a crime safely and anonymously. Call 800-TIPS. Help stop crime. You can play your part safely and anonymously. Report a crime. Earn a reward. Call 800-TIPS. Help stop crime. Be a hero. Champion. Fearless citizen. Be a crime stopper safely and anonymously. Call 800-TIPS. Help stop crime.
It's a different type of thing down there. Man, we party till we drop down there. With a lot of pretty girls down there. Down in Tobago.
The best.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning.
Viewers, welcome back this morning to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. We are chatting at this time with Dr. Paul Crooks, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Veterinary Association. This morning, viewers, our focus is on the Tobago Animal Hospital and antimicrobial resistance. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Good morning and welcome to you, Dr. Crooks.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you, and I love your color this morning. In fact, let me just let the viewers know this morning. Somebody peeped somewhere along the way because we're in red shirts, red tops, blue pants, and brown footwear. I don't know. I know I got ready before he did this morning. I know that for sure. All right. So somebody peeped. All right. But it's always good to chat with you this on the program, Dr. Crooks. Let's talk a little bit here. What are we talking about? What exactly are antimicrobials?
So antimicrobials are medications used for the treatment of various forms of infections or infestations. So simply put, if you have bacteria or germs, pathogens, on the whole, disease-causing agents, very small ones in your body, these medications should kill them. And that's what antimicrobials are used for. So the first antimicrobial really that was popularized was penicillin. Mm-hmm. And penicillin is widely known as the first antibiotic that was discovered and kills bacteria. And over the years, since its discovery, penicillin has become less and less effective at that task.
All right. So, are we talking bacteria in animals or bacteria in people?
Unfortunately, we are talking bacteria across the board.
Okay.
Every species.
Okay.
And so, basically, what happens? Because a lot of people have the idea that resistance is something we create by our choices. resistant organisms always have existed. And I put it to persons like this. If we have 20 people in a room and they all have 6 shots of tequila, how they react to the 6 shots of tequila varies.
Right.
Even though they all get the same amount of drug,
Right.
how they all respond is different. So you'll find some people falling over, you'll find some people falling asleep,
Some people giggling.
Some people, and then there's some people who are absolutely normal, like they didn't have nothing to drink.
Right.
Because there's that great variety, you can say that those persons who have had the 6 shots of tequila are resistant. They're already resistant. Whatever reasons, whatever mechanisms, whatever enzymes, however their stomach works, whatever coating in the stomach or the intestines that prevents absorption or limits absorption, those are genetic variations in those individuals that already existed. Go ahead.
Now, how do these antimicrobials affect us as humans? What part do they play in relation to the animals with humans?
Right. So one of the major issues that we have is the overuse and abuse of antimicrobials in food-producing animals. That is a major challenge.
So we're talking chickens,
goats, sheep, everything you can think of. Rabbits. If people eat it, we've been using antibiotics in them.
So once the animal is injected with it, or given that antimicrobial, and we eat, it enters our body.
Well, there are 2 different ways that we'll be affected. One is by applying the antimicrobial in the animal, we are killing off a lot of their normal bacteria.
Good and bad.
Good and bad, that would have been, the bacteria that are killed off are usually the fitter ones, basically. So if you imagine, again, let's think about a room where there is 1 person in 20 who is normal after having had 6 shots.
Right.
If we keep applying alcohol, people will die from alcohol toxicity. Eventually, everybody will die. And maybe that one fella who wasn't drunk before, maybe he gets a little tipsy by the time everybody else is dead. But if you consider that we apply in that room, that alcohol is all we ever apply, then in the past, when 19 people were there able to make children and pass on their genetics, now that we've changed the situation where only that one person who's resistant to the alcohol, where he can reproduce, his genetics will be passed on, he will now have more and more resistant children. So eventually we'll get to a point where the whole room is filled with people who are not being killed by the alcohol. So when you use the antimicrobials in the sheep or the goat, the bacteria in their intestines change, the bacteria in their meat changes, the bacteria on the skin changes. So now we are exposing ourselves to these resistant bacteria, that's one. But also what we have in the meat, in the milk, in the butter is the antimicrobial residue. So you have the penicillin that was given. Normally, there's a withdrawal period. After 2 or 3 weeks, that's when you slaughter the animal so that it's safe for human consumption because the antimicrobials would have cleared out. But a lot of farmers have been slaughtering animals who have the antibiotics still in their blood. Maybe the vet told them, okay, we can try to treat this. The animal may get better. I don't think you should treat it. You should kill it. But then the farmer says, doc, you know what? You could try. You could try. You give it the medication. You tell the farmer 3 weeks and then you slaughter. But then the farmer says, oh, this animal not getting better. You know, the vet was right. And in 2 days, 3 days, the farmer slaughters the animal where the antimicrobial level is still high. Then you are taking antibiotics without even choosing to do so. You may be, first of all, allergic to the antibiotic that's there. And then you start to develop signs of allergies and you don't know where they're coming from. Of course, allergic signs could be very severe, but they also may be mild. But then, going further, those antibiotics are changing the bacteria in your body to make your bacteria now more resistant.
What then are, and my director is saying here that we're almost out of time, but what then are the precautions? What then should persons be aware of? Because for those meat eaters, lamb, beef, chicken, goat, what should they be mindful of? And in terms of food processors, there is also responsibility on food processors and supermarkets who purchase the meat from, there's a whole chain.
So I want to say, first of all, this problem is not unique. This is a global concern. And testing, monitoring for antimicrobial residue in meat and that sort of thing, unfortunately, is not commonly done anywhere in the world. So we are asking our farmers in particular to please not use any antimicrobials without veterinary recommendation and only following directly the veterinary instructions when medications are given. So all farmers, please call your vet, speak to your vet before administering any medication and receive those clear instructions on how best to keep the animals safe and the people who later eat the meat and drink the milk safe.
Okay. Dr. Cross, we're definitely going to have you back with us this morning. The time is very short, but we need to get some more information on this issue because it affects us as people. So we find ourselves being ill without knowing or understanding the root cause of the illness.
Yeah, that's right. And also, maybe in 10 years, we might have a surgery and end up with a little infection after. And where in the past we used to be able to treat that infection, now we can't.
Antibiotics.
Now we can't.
All right. We're definitely going to have you back with us on the program. But viewers, we've got to wrap it up here, and we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning for the Tobago Updates morning show. We've got GMT coming up. Just before we head on over to GMT with Chanel, we want to send you on over to Tobago Notes. So we thank you for joining us again. Have a great day. Bye-bye, Tobago.
Now, Secretary Charles Panton, your division would have done a lot in 2022. Are there any future plans that you'd like to share with us for 2023?
Yes, we have several plans. Some of them would just be a continuation of what we started in the last fiscal. Like the Louisdor processing facility, we're going to continue with that. The Barbados fish facility, we're going to continue with that. And last fiscal, we would have submitted a proposal to the Ministry of Planning. So once we get the funding for that, we're going to fix up the botanical gardens. We're going to focus on the aesthetics. So when we talk about aesthetics, we're talking about plants and the different varieties of plants, plants that, you know, are indigenous to Tobago. And we really want to beautify the area, not only in terms of plants, but also in terms of infrastructure. You want to be able to, you know, bring your family there, have a picnic, maybe have coffee at a coffee shop, and of course the fencing we like to transform. You know, right now the fence is all rusted and falling, so we want to introduce some art. All right, so we'll have a lot of upgrades being done on the compound. We already started with one of the units, the buildings there. And that will continue once we get the funding from the Ministry of Planning.
You would have just highlighted the mega farms. That's a very interesting kind of concept for the island of Tobago. You want to tell us any little bit about that project?
Okay, so under the Special Purpose Company, TADCO, the Tobago Agribusiness Development Company, as I mentioned earlier, it's a separate entity to the division, so it's a profit-making entity. And building out the mega farms, you would want to do some of the groundwork before. So we started out by building capacity in the poultry farmers. So that is why we have the Poultry Contract Initiative, where we give the chicks and the feed for free. And we are hoping that lands will be given out, a lease arrangement, a contractual arrangement given to farmers, so that they can more or less engage in agricultural production. In my division, we like to work as a team, and as a matter of fact, I encourage it because, I mean, you need the expertise of everyone to be on board with every project. So we're going to continue to work as a team to improve the functions at the tractor pool station. And we're going to continue with all the initiatives under FAO to ensure that, we support the stakeholders in the wider community.
Yes. Now, when you indicated FAO, some persons may not know what that organization is about. Just tell us the full name of that organization and what are some of the key, just probably one or two of the projects that you'll be collaborating on going forward.
The FAO is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and we have partnered with them to build out the greenhouses made of bamboo. So that's the Bamboo Shade House project. We just completed the banana project in St. Vincent. They modeled the same project in St. Vincent. They just did it in Tobago and it was successful. We're going to continue with them in terms of improving the quality of livestock on the island. So very soon we'll have the Cubans coming in and doing that embryo transfer and fertilization project. So we are going to continue our partnerships with all the organizations. As I said, agriculture is a science and a business, and we intend to continue along that way.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Guys, when you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have to get your morning started while I ask the questions that you want to know. Now, before we get into this morning's conversations, I'm going to kick off this morning by giving you your news in 90 seconds. So, a 68-year-old Edward Eastman became Tobago's 5th murder victim for 2023. The resident of Old Ground Golden Lane was shot dead at his home on Wednesday morning. According to his wife, gunmen drove up to his home and shot at him while he was outside. Eastman ran inside the house, but he quickly succumbed to his injuries. Eastman's murder came just a week after Daniel Thomas was murdered at his home in Signal Hill. That murder remains unsolved despite ACP Collis Hazel's firm call for perpetrators to surrender themselves. So far, all of Tobago's 5 murders for the year were committed using firearms. Additionally, political leader of Unity of the People, Nkosi Phillips, called on the Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, and Minority Leader Kelvin Morris to put their political differences aside and develop a crime plan for Tobago. Following Tobago's 5th murder, Phillips pleaded with the Executive Council of the THA and the Minority Council to act on behalf of Tobagonians in Tobago's best interest. Phillips also criticized the recent heated exchange between Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, where Rowley called for an early election while Augustine instructed Rowley to mind his own business. Phillips reminds the leaders that young people were looking on. And finally, Dean Prasad, president of the Online Gaming Agents Association of Trinidad and Tobago, has urged all lottery agents not to participate in the National Lottery Control Board's new court payment scheme. Launched on Monday, an email addressed to lotto booth operators instructed that the judiciary cannot enforce risks that are only worth $1.50 per transaction. The email indicated that the latest court pay fee was imposed without consultation by the association and its agents and without proper notice of how the system works by the NLCB. On Monday, the judiciary announced court pay can be facilitated at lotto booths across the country. However, Prasad complained that they were not consulted about it. And that was on News in 90 Seconds. Guys, so as we continue our conversations here this morning, we're continuing with a bit of what we saw happening there in our News in 90 Seconds, where Nkosi Phillips called for the leaders here in Tobago within the THA to come together and establish a crime plan. But he also discussed a bit about the comments that were made by Dr. Keith Rowley and the current sitting Chief Secretary, Farley Chavez Augustine. saying to them that young persons are looking on. I mean, for the last 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, we have been talking about having this conversation about that call by Dr. Rowley for a fresh election to take place here on the island of Tobago, a fresh THA election, that is. And so as we continue this conversation moving forward, we had a number of comments coming up from a number of professionals here on the island, and also nationally. And so this morning, as we continue that conversation, Dr. Hamid Gandhi is going to be here, who is a university professor, and we're going to be talking about the fact that there is no legal case binding the THA to have an election as per the call by the Prime Minister, Dr. Q. Rowley. Good morning, Dr. Gandhi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here to Tobago Updates. And so, I mean, a number of experts have came out over the past 2 weeks and given their opinions and, you know, their expert advice as to why the Prime Minister has no real argument in his statement when calling for an election for the leader of the Tobago House of Assembly, which is Fali Chavez Augustine, to quickly call an election. Now, you would have made comments stating that there was no legal basis for such a request. All in all, in the grand scheme of things, you know, we want to kick off by getting some of your opinions on everything that has been unfolding between the Chief Secretary here in Tobago and the Prime Minister.
Well, I think that the first thing that we have to appreciate is that the Tobago House of Assembly Act has to be read in conjunction with the National Constitution, because Chapter 11A of the Constitution anchors the Tobago House of Assembly in the Constitution. And then everything in there states that this must be done as prescribed, that must be done as prescribed. So you have, for example, Section 141A, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which says that the Assembly shall consist of a presiding officer and such other members qualified and appointed in such manner and holding office upon such terms and conditions as may be prescribed. So the as may be prescribed part is the part where you have to go somewhere else to find what the terms and conditions of service of members of the Tobago House of Assembly are. So when we go, so that's Act 39 of 1996 amended the Constitution to insert the Tobago House of Assembly in Chapter 11A of the Constitution, and basically laid out everything to be done as may be prescribed. So the as may be prescribed takes us to Act number 40 of 1996, which is the Tobago House of Assembly Act. And in there, you will find that provision is made for the election of assemblymen and the nomination of councillors, the selection of councillors, etc., all of that which constitutes the assembly. And the reality is that there is no prescribed formula for members elected to the Tobago House of Assembly to have any penalty attached to their service in respect of them changing their political allegiance. So it doesn't exist. And some of the calls that were made, one can understand them because it's coming from an opposing political party. And wanting an election, you know, it's something that is not unusual. It is not an unusual request to make. But as far as the Tobago House of Assembly Act is concerned, there is no issue with regard to persons changing their allegiance. That's a separate matter. In my Sunday column of two, you know, I wrote about the issue of the Commonwealth Latimer House Principles, which were approved by the Commonwealth Heads of Government at their meeting in Abuja, Nigeria in 2003. And the Latimer House Principles document is one that spells out the independence of the judiciary and the independence of parliamentarians. And under independence of parliamentarians, it is very, very clear that changing your party allegiance should not constitute a basis upon which you should lose your seat. So this is 2003. The Commonwealth agreed this, and this was approved by Commonwealth Heads of Government. It's not a widely known document. It's not a document that people cite in their everyday commentary. but I felt that the content of the document was very relevant and germane to the discussion that was at hand.
Okay, excellent. And how do you perceive the current banter between the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary to be affecting the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, I don't know necessarily that it affects the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago. It's a call for an election in Tobago, and the Prime Minister leads a different political party to the political situation in the Assembly. Excuse me. So that it's the kind of situation that I think that one has to appreciate that it's a political demand that is being made, which will create a political opportunity ahead of the due date for an election. As it stands now, the Tobago House of Assembly has a fixed date for when it will stand dissolved. The only way that can be altered is if the very members of the Assembly themselves decide among themselves by majority vote that they wish to alter the date on which the Assembly will stand dissolved and to advance the date to an earlier time. That's the way that it is to be done. So calling on the Chief Secretary to do this, and then, citing that he is an independent and the others are all independents and so on, really is not getting to the heart of the matter, because you cannot dissolve the Tobago House of Assembly by a one-man show or a one-woman show.
But do you see a conflict in what the Prime Minister is saying, where on one hand he's saying when it comes to administrative business concerning the THA, he doesn't get involved because the Constitution doesn't allow him to, but then going ahead to ask the Chief Secretary to call an election due to the, the political changeover, we might say, that's happening in Tobago, in THA?
Yeah, well, the Prime Minister is right in saying that he doesn't get involved in Assembly affairs, and he can't get involved in Assembly affairs. On that score, he's right. On the other score, according to the election, that is seeking political opportunity. He would certainly like to have an election to be able to test the waters again. The difference is that in the national constitution, the Prime Minister, on his or her own, can advise the President to dissolve Parliament and have an election. And that is certainly the way in which that business is conducted. In the Tobago House of Assembly, it was designed very differently. And I remember at the time, one of the things that one of the architects of this act was concerned, A.N.R. Robinson, was very clear in his mind about two things. One, he did not want a president sitting in Port of Spain to have any power to dissolve any assembly in Tobago. That was one. And the second one, he did not want any one individual in that assembly to have any power to decide to advise a president sitting in Port of Spain about dissolving the assembly. What he wanted was that the assembly would have a fixed date for elections, and if there was the desire to deviate from that fixed date, then the members by majority vote would be the ones to make the change, so that it's a collective decision-making process to have an election in Tobago. It's not an individual one. Now, what was done in an amendment in 2021 was to give the Chief Secretary the opportunity to advise on the holding of an election in circumstances such as took place in 2021, where there was a 6-6 tie and it was inconclusive. So the Chief Secretary was given powers by the National Parliament to be able to make a call and to advise in respect of holding an election in a situation where the House was unable to resolve itself into continuing its business, which took place after the 6-6 in January of 2021. And then during the course of the year, the Act was amended to permit the Chief Secretary to have a certain degree of leeway to advise on an election. But outside of that power that was given to the Chief Secretary does not have the power in his or her own right to be able to advise on a dissolution. It is the members, collectively speaking, by majority vote, who can do that. That's a substantive difference. So calling upon the Chief Secretary to do this, it really would have to be perhaps a bit wider than just the Chief Secretary, because this is not a situation where you have an inconclusive outcome. The Assembly is continuing its business. The members were all elected. The issue of a political party is immaterial to the functioning of the Assembly, and that is, I think, the one area where a lot of persons are getting caught up in this process, thinking about how the National Parliament operates and trying to superimpose that on the Tobago House of Assembly, when the Tobago House of Assembly is a very different organization in terms of its structure and its powers. I brought the issue of the Commonwealth Latimer House principles into the discussion to raise the issue that shifts of party allegiance from a moral and philosophical standpoint is not regarded as a ground on which you ought to lose your seat. And this is something that Commonwealth heads of government agreed in 2003. And that was not forming part of the debate at the time when the call was made.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarity there. And finally, one of the questions that have been asked is persons are confused as to what capacity the Prime Minister should have used to make such a call. Some thought that because it was such a political statement, he should have used it, made this comment in his capacity as the leader of the PNM, as opposed to Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. What are your thoughts on that as well?
Well, you know, the Prime Minister leads a political organization, and his party is not in power in Tobago at the moment. So that he would have made that call seeking a political opportunity for his party to be able to have an electoral contest once again. So that from a political standpoint, there's nothing wrong with the Prime Minister making that kind of demand. From a prime ministerial standpoint, he's already on the public record as saying that he doesn't take part in assembly business. And on that score, he's right. He knows that that's not the area where he can go. Politically, he can make the call. And I imagine that the Tobago Island Council of the PNM would have supported the call that was made by the Prime Minister, because they too would certainly like to have another bite of the cherry in terms of an election long before the due date for that in 2025. And I think that, you know, from that point of view, you know, it is a situation that, you know, I see no fault with the Prime Minister making the call. You can always make a try. If they take the bait, well, then that's on them, not on him. And I think that is the critical part of this. But there is another dimension to this, which I think, in terms of being reflective about the situation, the response of the PNM to the call by the then PDP members after the January 2021 election, where it was a 6-6 tie, the call for power sharing. At the time, you know, they were the PDP members in the January 2021, after the January 2021 outcome, were offering power sharing. And they were offering, well, you have the chief secretary position, we will take deputy chief sec and 2 other defined portfolios. And we can go ahead, we arrange on who the presiding officer will be. An entire power sharing roadmap was laid out, and the PNM passed on it. They chose not to engage it. And the PNM members in the Assembly, obviously in consultation with their other colleagues, they passed on the power sharing. They would have had the chief secretary's position. They would have had it. They made a tactical blunder in passing on it. And I think that they rolled the dice on amending the THA Act to give the chief secretary certain powers to advise on another election. And when they had that election, there was no need for any power sharing discourse anymore, because the people spoke even more resoundingly than was the case in January of 2021. So 2021 was a pivotal year on 2 fronts. 1, the decline by the PNM of the offer of power sharing, and 2, rolling the dice on having another election or creating the conditions for another election in 2021, by which time, 11 months later, the electorate had formed a different view. There was a higher turnout, and we saw what happened, because in a small electorate, you know, you get a jump in turnout of 6 or 7%, and you see what can happen, which is exactly what took place. So I think that, you know, there is a bit of a desire now to try and see if we can get back to the polls and take advantage of what may have gone on between Mr. Duke and some of his former colleagues who chose to resign from his party, and there is no adverse consequence for resigning from a political party. The same would happen if you know, PNM member who is an elected member in the assembly were to resign from the PNM, nothing would happen to that person in respect of their membership in the assembly. But whatever happens in the political party, that's a different story.
Correct.
So I think that one needs to be able to examine a number of angles, but I think 2021 was a pivotal year for Tobago on those two fronts.
Okay, and before you go, Dr. Ghani, can you reiterate to the people of Trinidad and Tobago why they cannot try to apply the whole philosophy of crossing the floor in the national constitution to the THA Act?
Yes, well, the reality is that the same constitution that has crossing the floor principles that were established in 1978, Act number 15 of 1978, amended section 49 of the constitution to add an additional ground for vacating your seat in the national parliament in the House of Representatives, which is that if you resign from or you were expelled by the political party on whose ticket you were elected, that could constitute a ground for you being removed from your seat. And that certainly happened in the case of Herbert Valdi in 2013. But the very same constitution has in chapter 11A, section 141A, subsection 2, is very clear that the presiding officer and the and such other members are qualified and appointed in such manner, I'm trying to quote from it, the document itself, and holding office upon such terms and conditions as may be prescribed. So in the very same constitution, it delineates a different basis for members of the Tobago House of Assembly. So it says as may be prescribed. Well, where it is prescribed is in Act number 40 of 1996, which clearly sets out a different set of terms and conditions for members of the Tobago House of Assembly to function. It does not have any similarity with what is put in a national constitution for the House of Representatives. So the same national constitution has two sets of arrangements, one for the House of Representatives and another one for the Tobago House of Assembly. And the Tobago House of Assembly, one is prescribed elsewhere, which is Act 40 of 1996. And therefore, you can't compare the National House of Representatives with the Tobago House of Assembly. There's no basis for the comparison. The Constitution separates the two.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghani, and thank you for coming and giving us your time here this morning on Tobago Updates. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with a lot more conversation right after this.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise, the energy fill the sky.
Welcome to L'Image Parfait Day Spa, your urban oasis and wellness center. Our services includes massages, treatments, facials, pedicures, weight management, detox programs, and much more. Call us today at 624-1452 or 720-7474. Trinidad locations and Bonacore, Tobago at 273-7772. Let us treat you like the VIP you are.
Help! Fire service! Hello, fire service! Anybody in here? Fire service! Yeah, we're right here! We gotta get out! We're right here! Here, take him! Let's go.
Thank you for saving me. You're my hero.
Together, as we face the challenges during the new normal, always remember that fire safety begins with you.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates. Na, 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 na. Good morning, Tobago.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, guys. And this morning we are getting right into it. So you heard this morning in our news in 90 seconds that we had some comments coming from Nkosi Philip, who is the political leader of Unity of the People. And he has been calling for the leaders here in Tobago to come together and establish an effective crime plan. And so this morning we have Nkosi Phillips online with us. Good morning, Nkosi. Can you hear me? Pleasant good morning. Can you hear me? Your audio is not working.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you very well now.
Yeah. Right, good morning to Tobago Updates. Good morning to the listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. And good morning to you, the host of Tobago Updates. Good morning.
Thank you. Nkosi, it's always a pleasure to have you on with us, and you made a very pertinent call to the leaders to come up with a crime plan / strategy to deal with the crime situation that we've been seeing erupting here on the island of Tobago, especially for 2023. Have you gotten any response on that, any acknowledgement on that call?
No, it's obviously they won't listen to me, but I know at least I made the call so that the public can see that there are leaders that has common sense and could see that this crime situation has gone way beyond the Ministry of National Security, the Commissioner of Police. It now has to deal with us as leaders. Because while I was in the United Nations in New York, I would have met with the Commissioner of Police for Taiwan. I would have met with the Baltimore Commissioner of Police and certain other Commissioner of Police, and I had the same discussion. And one of the things that we'll mention is that once the leaders of a country, both opposition, vying for positions in government or not, they do not come together and sit on one accord for the betterment and the safety of the citizens, it will continue to have a push and pull, because we see when the government invites the UNC, they go with their plan, then they come out after the meeting and pull on what was said, and then you have that lack of support. Then we have another party coming and saying that they have a crime plan, and it's over skelter. So this is where right now, Trinidad and Tobago needs a serious intervention in terms of the crime situation. And we cannot continue to force our hand to say that the government isn't doing anything. The opposition isn't doing anything. Other political parties pulling and tugging. So this is where the time has reached for all of us as political leaders to sit around a round table. The same time you could have a symposium to have other Caribbean leaders come together to talk about crime. It's the same way you can call all your political leaders of Trinidad and Tobago. If you can't talk to Guy Griffith, then have the meeting where it's controlled. Even though we have to sign an agreement, because remember, the things that we're putting together as a crime plan for the safety and security of citizens, it also has to be censored in the fact that when we come out of that meeting, we cannot discuss, because that is national security things that you're putting together. So you cannot come out of a meeting and discuss. You can come out and see, well, the discussion was fruitful. We're looking to have proper prior or future engagements to see how best our um, um, ideas would have come together as political leaders and political parties. This is where the country needs to be headed, because at this point in time, you see in the fifth murder in Tobago of all places.
Tell me, how effective do you think a crime plan or a crime strategy from the THA would be, especially seeing that the THA does not have jurisdiction or responsibility for national security on the island here? And what are some of the ideas that you are talking about?
In regards to Tobago, we have to look at the Coast Guard. Just recently, one of our fishermen from Tobago had the loss in sea. You call the Coast Guard base, the boats are in Trinidad. There is no safety and security of our borders in Tobago. We have Army or Defense Force in Tobago. What are they doing? What we normally, when you see only when the place is on a shutdown, we see them come out in joint patrol with the police service. We have to look at Tobago. Tobago's sea space is wide open for any sort of corruption or any sort of illegal drug trade or gun trade. That's a fact. We have to also look at the Tobago police, the resources that are given to the police officers of Tobago. You go to the police station now, they don't have a receipt book to give you. They have to, if you have to print something, you have to go next door. The police officer have to go next door to print something to come back to the station. The resources, there's not resources, because my question is to the Minister of National Security and the government. If so much money is being pumped into the Ministry of National Security every year or every budget, where is the allocation? What allocation goes to Tobago? How does that resource disperse to Tobago, and to what extent? Because we're seeing the dilapidation of the army base, which the chief secretary said he will try to fix, or they will use their resources to fix the Coast Guard base. Up to this date, I haven't seen any work. If there is any work on it that I haven't seen, well, maybe. But otherwise, a crime plan for Tobago is needed, because we have to continue to maintain the safety of our citizens of Tobago and in the Tobago space. And it also has to do with culturism. Culturism in the sense that we have too much officers who know people that some people get off with, and some things, because there are some things that can be avoided. But you know, when you know an officer, Tobago is a small place where you know family, you know friends, and you're rubbing shoulders with persons. And I can say, I must congratulate them, which I did. They would have done excellent in finding the person who would have killed the Mr. Cooper. And you know, for a small space and the Tobago space, they are doing an excellent job with all the resources that they give them.
And you are aware that the acting police commissioner here, ACP Collis Hazel, that he takes his instruction from Trinidad, right? So with the formulation of crime plan strategy, who does that go to in your perspective? Who would that go to, and who would be carrying it out? Because he does not take his instruction from the THA.
Well, that has to change. And as you see, this is where the chief secretary comes in. If the chief secretary is not being heard in regards to that level of crime plan or initiative, at least, let me tell you something. You see, sometimes when you get this constitution thing, it overrides the integrity of what is supposed to be done in Trinidad and Tobago. And if the chief secretary is running the affairs of Tobago, and it doesn't need to, it doesn't say that, okay, this has to be in the constitution in order for me to give direction to the acting commissioner of police. Common sense would say, okay, as the commissioner of police for Tobago, the head of Tobago is the chief secretary. Let me, as the commissioner of police, meet with the chief secretary, the minority leader, and other political parties of leaders in Tobago. Let us have a discourse. Let us come up with a crime plan. And with that crime plan being finished, then the acting commissioner of police or the chief secretary can forward those recommendations to the Ministry of National Security or the commissioner of police. And the thing is very easy. This is not a thing where, oh, who has authority, who has an authority. The interest and the safety of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, especially Tobago, is what is needed. Forget, sometimes we have to sit down, it's the same thing. We're using psychologists to talk to children and we're not getting to them. But if somebody without a psychology degree talk to them, it's not about just talking them because you have a certificate or you're qualified. It's about your humanity. And humanity will tell them, as a leader, as a chief secretary, as the acting commissioner of police, you do it upon yourself. You want a crime plan initiative for Tobago, you want to incorporate the private business and the chief secretary and other political leaders, you call up meeting for yourself with all of us. We sit, we draft up a crime plan, we suggest it to the commissioner of police, we suggest it to the Minister of National Security and the government, and this is what should be running for the affairs of Tobago. Simple. It doesn't have to be in the Constitution to say that who has authority and who doesn't have authority. We need to get past that, and that is what is destroying our country at this point in time.
Nikosi, thank you for choosing Tobago Updates and always giving us your time and very important points that you raised there. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back with much more conversation after this.
The energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear my neighbor. 60,000.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorn's Place with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorn's Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tobago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tobago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tobago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tobago's at your service.
Coconut's Cafe, the buffet restaurant that specializes in all your tasty local dishes for breakfast and for lunch. Breakfast includes coconut bake and sada roti served with chokers, bull joil and sausages in tomato sauce. Not forgetting beef and cheese pies, shepherd's pie, macaroni pie and rice in various styles. Meat served in a variety of flavors, garden salads and pasta salads. All this accompanied by fruit juices, coconut water, your choice of a great combination to appease your taste buds. So call us today to order as we are here to accommodate your busy schedules or if you are having a cooking day off.
Sign up, save, and win every day with Digicel Plus. You could win a tablet or a TV every single day. Just sign up for Digicel Plus and like yourself. Visit digiceltt.com or a Digicel store to sign up now. Promotion ends May 19th and is approved by the NLCB.
Our national borders, our first step to security, but a possible access point for guns, drugs, crime. If it does not look right, do the right thing. Call Crime Stoppers anonymously. 800-8477. Report possible border crime.
Yeah. Hey.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denasia.
Let's go.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Guys, we're going to quickly get into our next conversation this morning. And this morning we're chatting with Dr. Shada Mahabir as well as Gregory Smith, who is the head of the Exploration UNDP Accelerator Lab, and Dr. Mahabir is the coordinator for Global Environment Facility and Small Grants Program. And this morning we're talking about the Tobago Innovation Challenge. Good morning, guys, and how are you doing?
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Good to
So,
see you.
Mr. Smith, are you here by yourself as well?
No, Dr. Mahabir will also be joining us, I believe.
Hello?
Via, I guess, we're not together. We're probably going to be joining from two separate video links.
Okay, excellent. And so tell us a bit more about the Tobago Innovation Challenge that we see happening in collaboration with the UNDP.
Sure. Hi, Dr. Mahabir. Glad you could join us as well.
Good morning.
All right, we're good.
And welcome to Tobago Updates.
Thank you.
Yes, glad to be here. And so the first question was to tell you about the Tobago Innovation Challenge. being jointly hosted by the UNDP Accelerator Lab and the Global Environment Fund's Small Grants Program. So Dr. Mahabir, I don't know if you want to take it from there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Greg. So the Global Environmental Facility Small Grants Program is offering to Tobago $100,000 in order to support the development of projects that will encourage support for people on the ground, as well as the development of or the conservation of the environment. This $100,000 is being offered specifically. It's the first time we've ever done this in Tobago, where we provided funding specifically for development in Tobago. So we're very excited about this. And we will be coming across to Tobago to help you all to develop these proposals and projects. Being able to give you all the technical support that you require in order to complete our application process, which is a two-step process where you would apply via concept first, tell us what your idea is, let's talk about how we can develop the idea, and then of course if it is that you're shortlisted, then your project will then. So that's on my end. Of course, this is a partnership between Jeff SGP and the UNDP Accelerators Lab, and we're offering funding at different levels. Our grant facility offers funding up to up to $5,000 US for a planning grant, and up to $50,000 US for a full grant. And now I'll hand over to Greg, who will give you a little more details about the funding opportunities through the Accelerator Lab. Greg?
Absolutely, thank you. So in addition, there are three types of grants, as Dr. Mahabir may have just mentioned. There's the planning grant for $5,000. There is the innovation grant for $20,000 and the enterprise grant for $10,000. So the Accelerator Lab will be providing sponsorship for the middle grant, the $10,000 grant for innovative ideas centered around the theme of keeping Tobago clean, green, safe, and serene. So this will welcome projects related to environmental conservation, community empowerment, building peace in communities, and similar or related topics. We had an information session last week, and we will also have a workshop in Tobago coming up soon. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself there. But that is the general theme. So there will be three sets of grants, in total $120,000 US worth of funding available, focused specifically on Tobago. Tobago, clean, green, safe, serene.
Okay, and Dr. Mahabir, can you tell us a bit about the criteria as well as some of the areas that you guys will be covering for the grant?
Okay, great, perfect. So under the Jeff Small Grant opportunity, which is the $5,000 and up to the $20,000 or the $50,000, the criteria for that funding is that you have to be an NGO that has been registered for at least 1 year, and you also have to be able to do the projects in our 5 focal areas, which would be biodiversity, climate change, chemicals and waste, land degradation, and water. So these are the 5 focal areas that we're looking to develop in line with the priorities of Tobago. We're looking for projects that are innovative in those spaces, in those focal areas, that will help Tobago to take it to the next level of realizing that green tourism, and exactly what Greg said, clean, green, safe, and serene. So our criteria is slightly different from the Accelerator Lab criteria. So I'm going to hand over to Greg now. So he's going to tell you about the criteria for the $10,000 US opportunity. Greg?
Yes, absolutely. So coming back to me again. So we want to make sure that we are able to facilitate as many types of ideas from as many different types of innovators within communities as possible. So for the grant that allows for $10,000 worth of funding, it's not just funding that you receive, by the way. You also receive training, capacity development, technical support to help implement your project ideas, and of various other benefits. So for that grant, the criteria are any organization. You can be an individual, you can be a micro and small enterprise, you can be a sole proprietorship, you can be a group of individuals, you can be an NGO or a CSO. So the criteria are pretty broad for that one, because we don't want anybody to fall through the net on this opportunity. Also, the projects can fall in any of the categories that you see on your screen now: ecotourism, community empowerment, environmental education, peace building, environmental conservation, waste management, recycling, upcycling, etc. So there's a broad variety of topics under which you may apply to the challenge. And the theme, once again, is keeping Tobago clean, green, safe, and serene.
Right, and for that $10,000 US dollar innovation project that you guys are sponsoring, you guys are saying implement an innovative project. So the person that wins by the submission of their plan has to implement that strategy, or is it something that they are about to win the grant based on a project that they have already implemented into the community?
That's a great question. And yes, so the project that you apply with would be the project that you implement. And Dr. Mahaber, I know you also wanted to add to that, so please feel free.
Yes, okay. So what I wanted to add, Janelle, was the fact that what we also want to be able to do for this project is actually develop partnerships between NGOs and SMMEs. So in other words, we'll be encouraging the development of the partnerships for sustainability of the project. So we want to build business models that will come out of these innovative projects. So to clarify, yes, we are giving you the money to actually implement the project, but we also want to help you to build the partnerships that will allow the project to last long beyond the funding that we would provide. So we want to be able to develop a sustainable business model that you could continue to do the work that you've said you want to do, even after we've gone.
Excellent. So does that include capacity building exercises and workshops and training? How do you guys plan to roll that out? So is it that once the organization, individual, or business wins, then they are trained before the project is implemented?
Absolutely. Yes. So we might be a chance to talk you through a bit of the timeline for the project. So Dr. Mahaber and I can kind of tag team on this, but the project will require the submission of an application online, a project concept form. Don't worry, don't be afraid. This is not a very complicated or difficult form to complete. This is to get your idea for your project onto paper so that we can review it. That deadline for submission of that project concept form is, Dr. Mahaber, I believe it is May 15th. So that is this month.
Yes.
The 15th of May, followed by, we will, on the 20th of May, we will have a live in-person workshop in Tobago that we'll call the Innovation Workshop. And the purpose of that workshop is twofold, as you just mentioned. It's around capacity development, helping you to develop your capacity to build a more solid and effective proposal and project plan to be submitted. So again, you haven't implemented a project yet. You've sent your idea, you've sent your concept, we've reviewed it. We're now helping you to put together that proposal so that it's a more solid and aligned project. And then we'll also do some brainstorming, some what we call collective intelligence, some issue mapping in that workshop. And Dr. Mahaber, do you want to take it from there with the GEF timeline, and then we can come back to the ACLAB timeline?
Right, okay. So what happens is Accelerator Lab and JAF SGP share that initial deadline, which is the 15th of May for concept. So if you are an NGO and you want a small seed money to start up a project to test, beta test or prototype an idea, you can apply for $5,000. If you are a business and you want to prototype or develop a business for yourself, you can apply for $10,000. Or if it is that you have a project on the ground, it already has some proof of concept, and you really want to upscale it now, so you want to expand it, you want to apply for 20 to 50,000 under JAF SGP. Now, under the two funding opportunities that JAF SGP provides, which is the up to 5 and up to 50. those the deadlines for the concepts, just the ideas. We want to hear how you're going to run out your project, who are your beneficiaries, and how you're going to sustain it. That concept deadline is the 15th of May. Subsequently, on the 20th of May, when we come in and we do the workshop with you guys to fine tune your ideas, the deadline for the final proposal is now the 2nd of June. Now, from that, so Jeff SGP and Accelerator Lab will share the 2nd of June deadline. So your concept deadline and your proposal deadline is the same for both entities. But the process will be slightly different because Jeff SGP will then evaluate your proposal submitted by June the 2nd and will then have individual meetings between the applicant as well as the National Steering Committee, where they will present to the National Steering Committee directly in terms of their project ideas, and they will have to defend it for the funding to the National Steering Committee, sort of like what the Accelerator Lab will do, but they do a slightly different process. So I'm going to hand you over to Greg. Greg is going to tell you about the Accelerator Lab process now. Greg?
Right, and not to cause too much complication, all this information, by the way, is available online using the link bit.ly/UNDP Tobago. I see it coming up on the screen, or you can email us at sgpmonitoring@gmail.com. But just to add to that, just as was said, so at the May 20th session, we will help you start building a proposal, so turning your concept idea into a more detailed proposal, which will be then due on June 2nd. From June 2nd onward, we will help we will review the proposals. We will help the top 10 proposals to develop really nice, classy, fancy pitch videos for their ideas. And then subsequently, they will present their ideas live to a panel of esteemed judges to determine who will be the winners of the actual funding. So it's a process. It's it's a good process. It's a fun process. Everybody, we've done it quite a few times. People have learned from it. People have really enjoyed and gained a lot from it.
And Dr. Mahavir, can you also remind the Tobago public of who can apply for these grants?
Right. Okay. So in terms of the up to 5,000 US, it can actually be NGOs, CBOs, or CSOs, so any sort of registered community organization. You can apply up to 5,000 US to start a project, to get seed money to start a project in your community. In terms of MSMEs, etc., you can apply up to 10,000 US. In terms of business persons or individuals who are wishing to establish or expand a business in terms of environmental benefits, social benefits, digitization benefits, all of those things, that you can apply up to 10,000 US for that funding. And finally, for NGOs, CBOs, and CSOs, so we're coming back to the community now. Those communities that have projects that are on the ground and want to expand those projects, you can apply up to $50,000 for funding in order to be able to expand the work that you've been doing. So I hope that's clear. Up to 5,000 NGOs, up to 10,000 SMMEs and individuals, and up to 50,000 NGOs.
Right. And finally, sorry, you said that the theme is keeping Tobago clean, green, safe, and serene. So all the projects have to be surrounding that theme, I'm guessing.
Correct. Yes. And all projects have to be implemented in Tobago.
Okay, excellent. All right, I think that is clear. And how can persons get into contact with you for more information? I see that you also posted the website. There's also the tt.undp.org that persons can get information from, and you guys are having an information session. Well, that was yesterday. You had your information session when? Oh, no, that went already. You already had that already. But yes. Okay, so but would you guys be in Tobago anytime before the deadline of submission?
15th? No, we won't be in Tobago necessarily, but we definitely feel free to email us if it is that you have any concerns, queries, you want to know how to fill out the form, you want some advice, please email us at sgpmonitoring@gmail.com, and we will definitely get back to you. We're monitoring the emails to make sure that applicants who are requesting information are able to access that as quickly as possible in preparation for the 15th.
All right, excellent.
also understand that even when you submit and you've if it is we have any queries with your application, we will be calling you directly. We will have a conversation with you even after you've submitted. If it is that you've left out anything from the application, we would allow you all to have a conversation with us to kind of update us on what your idea is and how great it could contribute towards the achievement of Tobago's motto or realization of clean, green, safe and serene.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you for being here on Tobago Updates. And guys, that's all we have for you for today. So as we wrap up, we want to say thank you to the team at UNDP as well as the GEF, Jeff Small Grants Program. And so we thank you so much for ensuring that Tobago is a key part of this initiative, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, guys, that's all we have for you for today. Again, thank you so much for making Tobago Updates the #1 broadcasting station right here on the island of Tobago. This morning, we had some really interesting conversations, starting off with Dr. Hamid Gandhi, who is a university lecturer. We spoke a bit about the fact that there is no legal basis to call an election in the THA here in Tobago. We also spoke to the leader of the Unity of the People, Nkosi Phillips, and we just had Dr. Shada Mahabir as well as George Smith, and they were talking about the Tobago Innovation Challenge. So guys, that's an opportunity for Tobagonians to implement projects to better assist in environmental issues here on the island, and that's called the Tobago Innovative Challenge, and the team is clean, green, safe and serene. So if you need to go back and get the information, you could go back and watch that. Again, thank you for making Tobago Updates the #1 broadcasting station here on the island of Tobago, guys. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.